Hi, I'm Lindsay from Lulubelle's Bakes. Welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to do a double barrel cake, and I'm using a 15 centimeter cake, and a double barrel is about 4 layers of cake, sometimes more. So you need a cake board the same size as your cake. Now this is a 15 centimeter, which you can see is the same size as my cakes, and you want to cut another board slightly smaller than your actual board. I'm just going to turn this over this so that you can see that clearly. So this board I've trimmed around the outside just so that it's smaller than my actual cake itself, and that I'm going to show you where you're going to put that a little bit later on. And all I did was I took a 10 centimeter cake tin, I took the bottom of the cake tin and I literally just drew around the outside, and I cut that out to get this size. So the first thing you want to do is you want to level your cakes. I've got my cake leveler, which has the wire, and it's got notches at the side, and both sides must be the same. So if I'm on 2 notches down this side, I must be 2 notches down on this side. Now, just looking at all my cakes in front of me, I can see immediately that this one here has got the lowest level. So I want to make sure that when I cut my cake and I level it, that it's just below that top of the cake there. So then all my layers will have the same level. So I'm going to start with this one here, and my hand's at the side of the cake, and I'm just going to slice it across and go on to the next one and slice that one, and the next one, and the last one. Take off the tops. So what you want to do is get your turntable, put your 15 centimeter thin cake board onto the turntable. I've got some ganache that I made a little while ago, which I've beaten to give it a nice consistency, and I've also flavored it, and I'm just going to put a little bit of that onto the cake board. And I'm going to put my first layer on. Take the back of the paper off. You'll see in my previous tutorials, I always use paper when I'm baking my cakes. I leave the paper on the cake, and then I take it off just before I assemble it. So there's my first layer. I'm just going to pour some of this ganache on. Just going to smooth that over. Now before I put the next layer on, I just want that to set. I'm just going to pop that in the fridge just for a few minutes. Right. Okay, so my cake's been in the fridge for a few minutes. The ganache is set nicely. Now I'm going to put the second layer of cake on. I'm just going to put that on carefully. Just make sure that it fits nicely all the way around. And I'm just going to seal it with some ganache around the side. Now this is where your support structure comes in, because now you're going to put another 2 layers of cake on top of this, and if you don't put support in here, your cake's going to collapse. So what you want to do now is you want to dowel the cake, and I'm using wooden skewers, and I'm going to put one through the center, and I'm going to put another 4 around the cake. So usually what I do is one in the center and one on either side. I'm going to trim these wooden skewers down. I've got a pair of cutters, and I'm just going to pick that up slightly and trim it and pop that back into the cake. And I'm going to do that with all of them. You want it to be about the same level as your top of your sponge. Right. Now I'm just going to put a light layer of ganache on here, just so that the board I'm going to put on sticks to this. And then I'm going to put that smaller cake board that we trimmed down earlier, that goes in the center. going to put a little bit of ganache in the center of that so that your next cake that you're going to put on is going to stick to that. Take your paper off and place that on top and just let that set. I'm going to put a little bit more ganache on top of this one as a filling. Just be careful at this point because this layer is not 100% set. Because this ganache is setting nicely now, I can put my next layer on top of this. If your ganache is a bit soft, just pop it in the fridge for a few minutes. And then you put your final layer on top. You can see how tall this cake is, and that's why you need that extra support in the middle to prevent it from collapsing. Now before I work any more on this cake, I'm going to stick it in the fridge so that these layers can stick together before I put my final coating of ganache on it. So my cake is set in the fridge just for a few moments. The chocolate is nice and set and dry to the touch. And now I'm going to completely cover the cake in chocolate ganache, starting at the top. And I'm just going to work it all the way around. And this is just going to seal the cake nicely and give it a nice firm base to work on. Okay, once I've got all that smeared around, I'm going to take my cake smoother and I'm going to smooth all that ganache on. Cake smoother and just go all the way around. Just keep going round and round until it's nice and smooth. And you can see there's a little bit there at the bottom that needs to be filled in. Just round there. And scrape your palette knife off every so often just so you don't get a build-up of chocolate, otherwise it's going to form ridges and grooves into your chocolate. And the same with your cake smoother, you want to keep it nice and clean. Right, again I'm going to use my cake smoother, go all the way around. There we go. I've got a palette knife here that's just been sitting in some hot water or boiling water. I'm just going to smooth off those edges now. So we've got nice clean edges. There we go. More scrape. These little gaps. And scrape that. Just make sure those edges are nice and smooth on the top. Right, now that's going to set in the fridge for a few moments, and then when that's done I'm going to cover that with buttercream. Right, now my cake is set, it's dry to the touch, so now I can ice it with the buttercream icing, which I've coloured with a little bit of the Colour Burst Pink Flamingo. I'm going to start at the top. And I'm going to work my way around. Now this is a nice tall cake, and the tall cake looks lovely with drips on it. We're going to end up putting some drips on this one, and I'll show you how we do that. I'll also put links to my buttercream recipe in the description below. Then I'm going to take my cake smoother and do the same as I did with the ganache. I'm just going to smooth it all the way around and just keep smoothing it till I'm satisfied that it's nice and even. If you see any gaps, just add a little bit more buttercream there. Just clean your cake smoother. Try and do a full revolution without stopping. This will ensure that you don't have lots of ridges in your cake. Right. I'm going to leave that cake there for now. Let that set for a little bit, and then I'm going to smooth it over with a cake smoothing cloth, and all of these little creases will all be smoothed out. Right, so the cake has been in the fridge for a little bit and it's cooled down and it's set. I'm going to put that onto my cake board. I'm going to use a little bit of melted chocolate. I'm going to pour that in the center, smooth it around, and then I'm going to put the cake onto that. This is a very tall cake, so I have to be quite careful. Bring it over and carefully put it down. And there we go. I'm going to smooth the cake down with a little bit of this cake cloth. Now this cake cloth is amazing. It's washable, it's reusable. And I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to place that there. I'm going to get my cake smoother and I'm going to smooth the top of the cake. And then I'm going to go around the sides. And that's going to smooth the cake nicely for me. So all those little sections that were quite rough earlier, those are all going to be smoothed in. So now I'm going to just pop this onto the turntable, and I'm going to drip some chocolate ganache around the edge, which I made earlier. It's had time to set. It's not too runny and it's not too thick. You want it to be able to run down the edge of your cake. So I've got a bottle here, and I'm going to start in the front. I'm going to gently drip around the cake. Cake ideally should be chilled before you do this. Around there. Alright, and there we've met up with the beginning. Now I'm just going to pour a little bit of this over the top, and I'm going to smooth this in on the top. I'm just going to smooth this over the top. I'm just going to place my topper. Top, let's just find it. Okay, that's going to go in the center. And while the ganache is setting on the top, I'm just going to put a few macarons around the side. I'm putting those onto the drip so that they can actually stick to the cake. Just hold them there. While the ganache is setting, I'm going to put the ribbon around the bottom of the cake board, which has been covered with a premium RTR white, and I'm just going to finish off the edge of the board, and I'm going to put some non-toxic glue around the side. And I'm going to start at the side of the cake with the ribbon. I'm just going to secure it with a pin, and I'm going to go all the way around. Where I've stopped there, I'm just going to snip that. Take the pin out, pull it nice and tight. And secure it again with a pin. And I'm just going to put a bow detail at the side. All I'm doing is I've looped this, and then I'm just going to go back and forth with that ribbon. And I'm just going to end it there. And I'm going to get a crystal top pin. Place that pin in the center. And then I'm going to secure it where that other pin is. There we go. Right, just going to finish decorating the top of this cake now. Just placing the macarons on top. Okay, to that I'm just going to add a few little sprinkles on top. And there we have our double barrel chocolate drip cake. Thank you for joining me. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and I'll put all the links to my recipes in the description below, and I hope you'll be joining me for my new upcoming tutorials. Thank you. Bye-bye. See, there's a wire here and there's little notches at the side.
Notches.
Notches, what are they? Notches.
Notches.
Okay,